The chill in the air wasn't just from the late autumn evening. It was a premonition, a cold dread settling deep in my bones, a sensation that prickled my skin and tightened my chest. I stood on the porch of my fiancé, Jason's, childhood home, the sprawling, slightly dilapidated Victorian casting long, skeletal shadows under the flickering streetlights. The house itself seemed to breathe, its ancient timbers groaning under the weight of generations of secrets, a silent sentinel guarding its dark history. Inside, a cacophony of forced laughter and loud, boisterous voices spilled out, a jarring, almost violent contrast to the quiet, meticulously ordered and fiercely independent life I'd painstakingly built for myself in my downtown loft. I'd known Jason for 2 years, a whirlwind romance that had swept me off my feet with its intensity and passion, culminating in a proposal 6 months ago that had felt at the time like the culmination of a dream. He was charming, attentive, and fiercely ambitious, everything I thought I wanted in a partner, a man who seemed to understand and champion my own drive. But tonight, meeting his family for the very first time a mere week before our wedding felt less like a joyous celebration and more like a pre-trial interrogation, a gauntlet I was expected to run. His mother, Eleanor, a woman whose smile didn't quite reach her eyes, a chilling disconnect between her pleasant facade and the cold calculation in her gaze, greeted me with a perfunctory hug that felt more like a calculated power play than a genuine gesture of welcome. Her grip was surprisingly strong, almost possessive, her gaze piercing, as if she were assessing my worth, my potential threat, with a single, dismissive glance. His older brother, Mark, a hulking man with a perpetually scowling face and a beer perpetually in hand, barely grunted a greeting, his eyes dismissive, his presence radiating an air of entitled superiority. And then there was Mark's wife, Sarah, a wisp of a woman who seemed to shrink into herself, her shoulders perpetually hunched, her eyes darting nervously between her husband and mother-in-law, a silent, desperate plea for help etched onto her delicate features. Their 3 children, all under 10, clung to her skirts, their faces unusually solemn for kids, their innocence already tainted by the oppressive, suffocating atmosphere that permeated every corner of that house. The air was thick with unspoken rules, with generations of ingrained expectations, a suffocating weight that pressed down on me the moment I stepped inside, stealing the very breath from my lungs, making it difficult to even think. Eleanor, without missing a beat, her voice sharp and commanding, gestured towards the kitchen, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Sophia, dear, why don't you give Sarah a hand with dinner? It's woman's place to ensure the table is set just right for the menfolk." My jaw tightened, a muscle twitching involuntarily in my cheek. I was a senior architect, a project manager overseeing multi-million-dollar developments, a woman who commanded respect in a male-dominated field, not a domestic helper, and certainly not a guest expected to immediately don an apron and serve. But Jason, usually so quick to defend me, to champion my independence, merely offered a weak, placating smile and a shrug, a gesture that felt like a betrayal. "It's just how things are here, sophomore old traditions." Old traditions, I thought, that smelled suspiciously like blatant sexism, thinly veiled misogyny, and a calculated attempt at asserting dominance over any woman who dared to enter their domain. Sarah, her shoulders still hunched in resignation, offered a faint, apologetic smile, a silent apology for her own helplessness, and led me into a kitchen bustling with activity, Eleanor barking orders like a drill sergeant, her voice cutting through the clatter of pots and pans, the clinking of silverware. The children, surprisingly, were nowhere to be seen at the dinner table, a detail that struck me as profoundly odd, almost unsettling, but I dismissed it, trying to rationalize it as another one of their peculiar traditions. I helped, mostly out of a desperate desire to avoid a scene, to avoid Eleanor's watchful, critical eye, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary, my mind racing with a growing sense of unease, a feeling of being trapped. This wasn't the warm, welcoming family I'd envisioned, the kind of family gatherings filled with genuine laughter and heartfelt affection. This was a fortress, a tightly controlled kingdom, And I was an unwelcome intruder, a foreign body in their meticulously ordered, almost ritualistic world. The dinner itself was a blur of forced pleasantries and thinly veiled judgments, each bite tasting like ash in my mouth. Eleanor grilled me relentlessly about my job, my finances, my plans for children, each question a calculated probe into my suitability as a future daughter-in-law, a test I felt I was failing spectacularly, deliberately. Mark chimed in with condescending remarks about women in the workplace, his words laced with an archaic misogyny that made my skin crawl, while Sarah remained utterly silent, her gaze fixed on her plate, her eyes betraying a deep, unspoken sadness, a profound weariness that seemed to age her beyond her years. Jason, seated beside me, occasionally squeezed my hand under the table, a gesture that felt more like a desperate apology for his family's behavior than a genuine show of support, a silent admission of his own powerlessness. The men dominated the conversation, their booming voices filling the room with boisterous anecdotes and self-important pronouncements, while the women, including me, were relegated to polite nods and forced, brittle smiles, our opinions unasked for, our voices unheard. When the meal finally ended, a wave of relief washed over me, a desperate hope for escape. I caught Jason's eye, a silent, desperate plea for escape hanging in the air between us. He nodded sadly, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. But before we could make our move, before I could even push back my chair, Eleanor's husband, Robert, a man whose presence was as imposing and unyielding as his house, cleared his throat, his voice booming across the table, cutting through the polite chatter. "Where are you two off to? Who's going to help clear the table and wash the dishes?" And I haven't finished my talk with my son yet. That was it. My carefully constructed composure, my polite facade, shattered into 1,000 pieces, revealing the raw anger beneath. "With all due respect, Mr. Miller," I said, my voice trembling slightly but firm, each word a defiant challenge, a declaration of my boundaries. "I'm a guest in your home. In my family, guests don't do the dishes. The hosts do. And I, sir, am not the host." I stood up, pushing my chair back with a scrape that echoed in the sudden, stunned silence of the dining room, a sound that felt like a gunshot. "I think it's time for me to go." I walked out, the heavy oak door slamming shut behind me, a resounding declaration of my rebellion, leaving behind the stunned silence and the suffocating weight of their archaic traditions. Jason caught up to me at the end of the driveway, his face a mixture of anger, confusion, and a hint of fear, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. I expected a furious fight, a scathing lecture about disrespecting his family, about ruining his evening. Instead, he was quiet. His silence a strange, unsettling comfort, a momentary reprieve. The wedding, I realized, was still on, but a seed of doubt, cold and sharp, had been planted deep within me, a seed that would soon blossom into a terrifying truth, a truth that would unravel everything. The incident at Jason's parents' house cast a long, ominous shadow over the next few months, a dark cloud that seemed to follow us wherever we went. We moved into my spacious, renovated loft, a sanctuary of modern design and personal freedom, a stark contrast to the oppressive, suffocating atmosphere of his family home. For a while, Jason seemed to forget his family's archaic expectations, embracing our independent life with a surprising enthusiasm, almost as if he too had been liberated. He even started helping more around the apartment, cooking dinner, doing laundry, a stark contrast to his passive, almost subservient behavior at his parents'. I thought perhaps I had misjudged him, that he was capable of breaking free from the suffocating grip of his upbringing, that our love was strong enough to overcome the ingrained traditions of his family. We settled into a comfortable routine, a fragile peace, a temporary truce, and the wedding, which had been vaguely postponed due to a scheduling conflict that was entirely my doing, was tentatively back on the calendar for next spring. Then came the subtle, insidious shifts, like hairline cracks appearing in a perfectly smooth facade, threatening to shatter the illusion of our happiness. First, the casual suggestions about selling my loft. "It's a great place, soft, really, but think of the equity. We could put it towards a down payment on a house, something with a yard for when we start a family. A proper family home, with space for everyone. I brushed it off, reminding him how much I loved my home, how close it was to my work, how it represented my hard-won independence, my identity. Then the increasingly frequent visits to his parents, always alone. He'd return agitated, distant, his eyes clouded with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Was it guilt? Resignation? Fear? A combination of all three? He'd insist I join him, citing the need to build bridges, to mend fences, to show them we're a united front. But I always found an excuse, a pressing deadline, a sudden illness, a migraine. The memory of Eleanor's icy glare and Robert's patriarchal pronouncements was still too fresh, too painful, too humiliating. One evening after one of his solo visits, Jason dropped a bombshell, his voice devoid of emotion, as if he were merely relaying a weather report, a mundane fact. My parents want us to move in with them. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, stealing the oxygen from the room, making it hard to breathe. I stared at him, disbelief warring with a rising tide of anger, a cold fury that threatened to consume me, to erupt. Are you serious? After everything? After how they treated me? After you saw how miserable Sarah is living there? He looked away, fiddling nervously with his wedding band, avoiding my gaze, unable to meet my eyes. It's their tradition, sophomore. The eldest son brings his wife home. Mark did it. It's expected. And they have a huge house, plenty of room. We could rent out your loft, save up for a car, maybe even a bigger house later. His voice was laced with a desperate plea, a weakness I hadn't seen before, a desperate attempt to rationalize the unthinkable, to make the absurd sound reasonable. And besides, he added, almost as an afterthought, his voice barely a whisper, as if he were afraid to say it aloud, it would be good for when we have kids. My mom and Sarah could help. Help? I scoffed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue, laced with venom, with a deep-seated resentment. Or control. Jason, I love my job. It's a minute commute from their place. Are you seriously suggesting I give that up to be a live-in nanny and housekeeper for your family? To become another Sarah, a silent, subservient shadow? He looked at me then, his eyes cold, devoid of the warmth I'd grown to love, a stranger staring back at me, a man I no longer recognized. You're pregnant, Sophia. We found out this morning. My world tilted, spun violently on its axis, threatening to send me spiraling into an abyss of despair. Pregnant? How? We'd been so careful, so meticulous with our birth control, so diligent. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach, a mixture of shock and terror, a profound sense of violation. This wasn't a joyous announcement. It was a weapon, a carefully timed maneuver, a trap sprung with chilling precision. He hadn't told me. He'd let his mother, or perhaps Sarah, tell him first. The betrayal was a physical ache, a searing pain that eclipsed even the shock of the news, a wound that would never truly heal. The news of my pregnancy, delivered not by Jason, but by his family's insidious machinations, was the ultimate betrayal, a violation of trust that cut deeper than any argument. I confronted him, my voice shaking with a mixture of fear and fury, each word a desperate attempt to reclaim some semblance of control, to assert my agency. You knew, and you didn't tell me? You let your mother tell you first? He flinched, a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but his resolve seemed to harden, his jaw clenching, his face becoming a mask of stubborn determination. It was a surprise for everyone. But it changes things, Sophia. It means we have to do what's best for the baby. And what's best is being with family. My family. He spoke of it as if it were a done deal, a decree from on high, an unalterable truth, a fate sealed. The next few weeks were a blur of arguments, tears, and a growing chasm between us, a gaping wound that refused to heal, widening with each passing day. He started spending more time at his parents' house, returning late, his phone constantly buzzing with calls from Eleanor, each ring a fresh stab of dread, a reminder of the invisible strings pulling him away from me. He'd stopped asking me to join him, now he just expected it, a silent demand that hung heavy in the air, a burden I refused to bear. One afternoon, Sarah called me, her voice a hushed whisper, laced with a desperation that sent shivers down my spine, a warning carried on the wind. "Sophia, you have to be careful. Eleanor, she's very controlling. She did this to me. She made Mark believe it was for the best, for the children. But it's not. It's a trap. Get out, Sophia, before it's too late. They'll take everything from you, just like they took everything from me." Her words were cut short by a sudden gasp, a muffled sound, and then the line went dead, leaving me with a chilling silence. I tried calling back, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm in my chest, but there was no answer, only the cold, impersonal hum of the dial tone. A chilling premonition settled over me, a dark cloud obscuring the last vestiges of hope, a sense of impending doom. Sarah, the quiet, subservient Sarah, was trying to warn me. But about what? What horrors lay hidden within the opulent, yet suffocating walls of that seemingly respectable Victorian? Days turned into a week, and Sarah was gone. Mark claimed she'd left him, run off with another man, unable to handle the responsibilities of motherhood, a convenient, carefully crafted narrative spun by the Miller family to cover their tracks. Eleanor echoed his story, her voice dripping with false sympathy, her eyes gleaming with a chilling satisfaction, a predatory glint. But I didn't believe it. Sarah was terrified, a prisoner in her own home, her spirit crushed, her will broken. She wouldn't just abandon her children, not without a fight, not without a trace. I tried to press Jason, to make him see the truth, to break through his denial, but he became evasive, angry, his face a mask of denial and resentment. She was unstable, Sophia. You don't know what you're talking about. Just focus on us, on the baby. Don't get involved in their drama. His words were meant to reassure, to silence my doubts, but they only fueled my suspicions, igniting a fierce determination within me, a burning need for justice. I started digging, subtly at first, then with a growing sense of urgency, driven by a desperate need to uncover the truth, to find Sarah. I found old social media posts of Sarah's, vibrant and full of life before she married Mark, before she moved into that house, her smile radiating a genuine joy, a spark that had been extinguished. Then, nothing. A digital ghost, erased from existence, a life wiped clean. My pregnancy progressed, but the joy that should have accompanied it was overshadowed by a gnawing fear, a constant anxiety that clung to me like a shroud, a suffocating blanket. Jason became increasingly possessive, monitoring my calls, questioning my whereabouts, his eyes following my every move, a silent, constant surveillance. He insisted I quit my job, citing the stress, the grueling commute, the needs of the baby. His voice laced with a manipulative concern that felt like a thinly veiled threat. He wanted me isolated, dependent, stripped of my identity, just like Sarah, just like the other women who had entered their orbit. I refused, clinging to my independence like a lifeline, my career a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness, a symbol of my autonomy. The arguments escalated, turning vicious, each word a poisoned arrow aimed at the heart of our relationship, tearing it apart. He accused me of being selfish, of not caring about our child, of disrespecting his family, his voice rising in a crescendo of self-righteous anger, a righteous indignation that felt utterly false. I accused him of being a puppet, a spineless pawn in his mother's game, of letting his family dictate our lives, our future, our very existence. The love we once shared was curdling into resentment, a bitter taste in my mouth, a memory of something beautiful now tainted. One night, I overheard Jason on the phone with Eleanor. His voice was low, urgent, laced with a desperate frustration, a hint of fear. She's still resisting. I don't know what else to do. She won't listen. She's asking too many questions. Eleanor's voice, sharp and clear even through the thin walls, cut through the silence, chilling me to the bone, a voice of pure, unadulterated malice. Then you make her listen, Jason, for the good of the family, for the good of the child. We can't have another incident. You know what happened last time. We can't afford any more complications. The words sent a shiver down my spine, a cold dread that permeated every fiber of my being, a terrifying realization. What had happened to Sarah? What was Eleanor truly capable of? The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, a sudden, brutal clarity. This wasn't just about tradition. This was about control, about power, about a dark, sinister secret lurking beneath the veneer of their perfectly respectable family. This was a pattern, a cycle of manipulation and subjugation, a legacy of silenced women. It's strange how these dark family secrets connect us. If this story's getting under your skin, subscribe for more real family exposés. The thought of my unborn child being raised in that suffocating environment, under Eleanor's tyrannical rule, filled me with a primal terror, a desperate, visceral need to protect my baby from the fate that had befallen Sarah, from the fate that had befallen Mark's first wife. I had to escape. But how? Jason had become a stranger, a monstrous caricature of the man I loved, a willing pawn in his mother's twisted game, a man utterly lost to me. I was alone, pregnant and trapped in a web of deceit and manipulation, a prisoner in my own home, my own body. The stakes were higher than ever. I wasn't just fighting for my freedom, I was fighting for my child's future, for her right to a life free from the Millers' toxic influence, free from their suffocating control. And I knew with a chilling certainty that Eleanor Miller would stop at nothing to get what she wanted, to maintain her iron grip on her family, to preserve her twisted legacy. The game had changed. This wasn't just a family drama, it was a fight for survival, a desperate struggle against a powerful, insidious evil that threatened to consume us all. The walls of my beautiful loft, once a symbol of my hard-won independence and a testament to my success, now felt like a gilded cage, a luxurious prison. Jason's presence was a constant, suffocating weight, his watchful eyes following my every move, his forced smiles hiding his simmering resentment, a barely contained rage. He had, under the guise of caring for me and protecting our unborn child, effectively placed me under house arrest, a prisoner in my own home. He confiscated my car keys, citing a need to shield me from the stress of driving, a thinly veiled attempt to cut off my mobility, to sever my connection to the outside world. He changed the Wi-Fi password, claiming it was for security reasons, but I knew it was to sever my connection to my friends, my colleagues, my entire support system. He was isolating me, systematically cutting me off from everything and everyone I held dear, just as he had done with Sarah, just as his family had done with countless others. But he had gravely underestimated me. He had forgotten that I was an architect, a meticulous planner, a woman who knew how to build and, if necessary, how to tear things down with precision and unwavering determination. My chance came on a Tuesday afternoon, a day etched forever in my memory, a day that would change the course of my life. Jason had a rare in-person meeting he couldn't miss, a crucial client presentation that demanded his full attention, a distraction I desperately needed. He left reluctantly after a series of patronizing reminders to rest and not overdo it, his voice dripping with a false concern that made my stomach churn, a sickening sweetness. The moment the door clicked shut, the sound echoing ominously in the sudden silence of the loft, I sprang into action. I had a burner phone, a relic from a paranoid phase in college, hidden in a hollowed-out architecture textbook, a contingency plan that now seemed eerily prescient, a stroke of genius. I retrieved it, my fingers fumbling with the familiar weight of the device, and called the only person I could trust, the one person who had always had my back, despite our estrangement, my older sister, Chloe. We hadn't spoken in years, a stupid petty fight over a boy I couldn't even remember. A triviality now in the face of true danger, but blood is thicker than water and I was drowning, desperately clinging to the hope of rescue. "Chloe, it's Sophia," I whispered, my voice hoarse with fear and urgency, each word a desperate plea, a cry for help. "I'm in trouble. I need your help. Now, I'm pregnant, and Jason's family, they're trying to trap me." I explained everything, the words tumbling out in a frantic, breathless rush. Jason's manipulative family, the forced move, the terrifying pregnancy announcement, Sarah's mysterious disappearance, the chilling overheard conversation about another incident, the pattern of control and abuse. Chloe, to her eternal credit, didn't question me, didn't waste precious time on recriminations or doubts. She just said, her voice calm and resolute, a steady anchor in my storm, "I'm on my way. Stay put. Don't do anything until I get there. I'll be there as fast as I can." While I waited, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of fear and adrenaline, I continued my desperate search for answers. I used my burner phone's limited data to access public records, meticulously searching for anything related to the Miller family, any hint of their dark past, any chink in their armor. And then I found it, a faded news article from 10 years ago, buried deep in the archives of a small local paper, a forgotten piece of history. The headline screamed, "Tragic accident claims life of young mother." The young mother was Mark's first wife, a woman I never even knew existed, a ghost in the Miller family narrative, a forgotten victim. The article was deliberately vague, citing a fall at the family home, a convenient explanation for a suspicious death, a story carefully constructed to deflect blame. But the accompanying photo, a grainy black and white image, showed a woman with the same haunted, defeated eyes as Sarah, a chilling premonition of her fate, a mirror reflecting the past. And then the final horrifying piece of the puzzle, a link to a blog post written by the woman's sister, accusing the Miller family of foul play, of systematically driving her sister into a deep depression, of isolating her, of controlling her every move, until she had nothing left, until she was broken. The blog had been taken down, scrubbed from the internet, erased from public view, but the internet never truly forgets. I found a cached version, a digital ghost crying out from the past, a chilling testament to the Millers' insidious pattern of abuse, a warning from beyond the grave. This moment shattered everything I knew. If you're feeling this shock too, hit like. It helps uncover more hidden family truths. The truth was a cold, hard stone in my stomach, a leaden weight that threatened to drag me down into the abyss of despair. Sarah hadn't run away. She was the other incident, another victim in the Millers' long, dark history of control and manipulation. And I was next, destined to become another casualty in their twisted game, another woman silenced, another life destroyed. Chloe arrived like a whirlwind, her beat-up sedan screeching to a halt in front of my building, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness, a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. She helped me pack a small bag, my hand shaking so badly I could barely zip it up, my mind racing with 1,000 fears, 1,000 what-ifs. We were about to leave, to make our escape, to break free when we heard the unmistakable sound of a key in the lock. Jason was back. He'd forgotten his laptop, a cruel twist of fate, a moment of pure, agonizing irony. He saw the small bag clutched in my hand, the open door, the look of unadulterated terror on my face. The mask of the caring, concerned fiancé dropped, replaced by a cold, hard fury that contorted his features into something monstrous, something I had never seen before. "Where do you think you're going, Sophia?" He snarled, his voice low and menacing, a predator cornering its prey, ready to strike. He lunged for me, his eyes blazing with a terrifying possessiveness, a primal rage. But Chloe, my fierce, protective sister, stepped between us, a human shield, her body a barrier. "Get away from her," she said, her voice steely, unwavering, a defiant challenge that echoed in the small space. The confrontation was brutal, a blur of shouting and shoving, accusations and denials, a desperate struggle for control. Jason, his face contorted with rage, grabbed my arm, his grip like a vice, his fingers digging into my flesh, leaving angry red marks. "You're not leaving," he hissed, his breath hot on my face, his words a chilling promise. "You're carrying my child. You belong to this family. You belong to me. I belong to myself." I screamed, yanking my arm free with a surge of adrenaline, my voice raw with defiance with a newfound strength. "And this baby will never be a part of your twisted, sick family. Never. I'll die before I let that happen." I told him what I knew about Mark's first wife, about Sarah, about the blog post, each word a hammer blow to his carefully constructed facade, shattering his lies. His face went pale, his bravado crumbling, replaced by a look of stunned horror of utter defeat. He knew. He had known all along. He was a monster, just like his mother, just like his brother, complicit in their heinous crimes, a willing participant in their web of deceit. In that moment, I saw him for what he truly was, a weak, pathetic man, so desperate for his family's approval, so consumed by their toxic traditions, that he was willing to sacrifice me, to sacrifice our unborn child, to the same dark fate that had claimed the women before me. The man I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger, a monster. We escaped. Chloe drove like a bat out of hell, her foot heavy on the accelerator, the tires squealing in protest, not stopping until we were 3 states away, in a small, anonymous town where no one knew our names, where the Miller's influence couldn't reach, a place of refuge. I immediately got a restraining order against Jason and his entire family, a legal shield against their insidious control, a barrier between us. The divorce was messy, a protracted, ugly battle, but I had the evidence, the cash blog post, the burner phone, Chloe's unwavering testimony. They fought dirty, of course, trying to paint me as an unstable, unfit mother, a hysterical woman making wild accusations. But the truth, as it often does, won out in the end, shining a harsh, unforgiving light on their dark secrets, exposing them for all to see. I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl, Lily. She is my world, my reason for breathing, a beacon of hope and resilience, a testament to my strength. I moved to a new city, started my own architecture firm, pouring my heart and soul into building a future for us, a life free from the shadows of the past, free from the Miller's toxic legacy. I never saw Jason or his family again. I heard through the grapevine that Mark had divorced Sarah, or rather that she had been committed to a mental institution, another victim silenced, another life destroyed, another tragedy in their wake. Eleanor, I'm sure, is still ruling her little kingdom with an iron fist, her eyes scanning the horizon for her next victim, her next pawn in her twisted game of control, her next woman to break. Sometimes, late at night, when Lily is sleeping soundly in her crib and the house is quiet, a profound silence broken only by the gentle hum of the refrigerator, I think about what would have happened if I had stayed, if I had succumbed to their pressure, to their insidious traditions, if I had allowed them to control my body, my mind, my life, to turn me into another Sarah, another forgotten victim. I still lie awake wondering, what would you have done when they tried to control your body? Share your truth in the comments. Subscribe for more shocking family revelations. I look at my daughter, her face so full of innocence and light, her future bright and unburdened, and I know with every fiber of my being that I made the right choice. I chose freedom. I chose life. I chose us. And in doing so, I broke the cycle, ensuring that Lily would never become another victim of the Miller family's dark, suffocating secrets, that she would grow up strong, independent, and free. My story is a testament to resilience, a warning to others, and a promise to my daughter that she will always have a voice, always have a choice.